Hello again, liberal and therefore evil people. It's part 3 of my review of Jacob Bronowski's Ascent of Man. Before I get into chapter 1, having reviewed the preface and the introduction in parts 1 and 2, which you can go back and check out, before we get into that, I wanted to just come to some messages and emails and Twitter comments and comments that people have been posting on the howgoodisthat.wordpress.com blog. With regard to the first 2 parts. The first thing to say about Twitter is that a lot of people seem to want to engage me in very long conversations about the ins and outs of some of the points that Joe has put forward, and 140 characters really doesn't do it. So you're going to have to come to the blog to leave comments on the videos which are embedded on there if you want to get into real debate about this. On that front, a long-time commentator, contributor to the blog, Michael, has picked me up on being sort of attacking of Joe, really, and using strong language in which to do it, as if he hasn't somehow brought it on himself. Look, the thing about that is this. I hope by now that people from parts of the world other than the northeast of England, which is where I'm from, have worked out for themselves that even though this is a subject that means a lot to me and I'm passionate about it, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek as well. You know, it's not all supposed to be serious. I'm trying to inject a little bit of humour into it as well. So if the colourful language puts some people off, then if somebody would like to volunteer to make a safe for work censored version so that some of the words are bleeped out, then I'm more than prepared to make the audio track available for people so that you can go through and do that yourselves. But it takes me long enough to edit it together as it is without me going through and doing 2 different versions. On the actual attacks of what Joe says himself, with regard to, I believe it was the opening sentence of the preface where Joe says that, is life inherently without purpose and meaning? If there is no God, we're here by random chance process. Look, if you want to get into the whole thing of the anthropic principle and why something rather than nothing, then there are plenty of other places on the rest of the blog for you to go and find out my thoughts on things like that. I've posted videos and articles on that very topic for almost two and a half years now. I would point you towards this link, which is a lecture by Lawrence Krauss, where he explains. Sometimes you hear this from creationists. They will say things like, oh, well, atheists believe that everything came from nothing. Atheists believe in nothing, but they believe we came from nothing, and all of those usual arguments that they put forward. And there's a brilliant lecture by Lawrence Krauss in which he addresses where we are at the moment, in terms of trying to unify all of the different scientific theories on the origin of the universe, and how quantum fluctuations may be our best explanation that we're likely to find, certainly in our lifetime, for how the Big Bang happened in the first place. And so in other words, it's not as if science doesn't have an answer to these questions, although you'd be forgiven for thinking that that science doesn't have an answer to these questions if you believe half of the creationist propaganda that's out there. So in terms of ad hominem attacks on Joe himself, all I have to say is this. I am personally offended every single time I hear of somebody in the year 2010 who has managed to get through most of their adult life believing in things that aren't true, and not only believing in things that aren't true, but believing that they are more true than the truth. I'm offended when I see creationists trying to push religion in the science classroom. I'm personally offended when I hear about children being told things that aren't true. So if there is any offence being caused here, let's not forget exactly what we're talking about and get it into a little bit of perspective. We're talking about highlighting the words of somebody who claims to be able to, and I quote, prove with scientific logic that the entire theory of Darwinian evolution by natural selection is a lie, okay? And he claims to do it in this many pages. So let's not get ahead of ourselves when it comes to who's personally attacking who here, okay? Atheism is a belief with a belief system. Chapter 1 Atheism is religion, evolution is their creation, by Cienkowski. Atheism is a belief there is no God. Atheists believe there is no God. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. I don't believe there is no God. We've been there with this one before, and he keeps retweeting the same question over and over again because he isn't listening, and we know that already. But I don't believe there is no God. I believe there is no evidence of any specific God. Now, if you still don't get it, rewind the clip a little bit and keep playing that part over and over again until you get it into your thick head, okay? In the American Heritage Dictionary, belief is the mental acceptance of and agreement and conviction in the truth, actuality or validity, well-grounded and contains premises for which the conclusion may be logically derived. Believe means to accept as true or real. I think you mean belief. So if you ask an atheist, are you convicted of and mentally accept and believe it's true that atheism is true and valid, you would say yes as an atheist. You can't say I have no belief, because you must believe something. Well, yeah, I believe in the truth, and the truth is there is no evidence of any specific God. Are you there yet? Because you must believe something. Okay, you believe there is no God. No, I don't. Therefore, no matter how many times you go over and over it, it isn't going to suddenly become true just because you keep repeating this thing to yourself. You know, you might be into the whole listening to the echo chamber of your own opinion thing, but those of us with a mind of our own aren't, okay? So it doesn't matter how many times you basically regurgitate exactly the same thing. It's not going to suddenly become true, okay? To say I have no belief is unreasonable because you do. You also have a belief system, okay, in accordance with your beliefs, and may behave a certain way, and as you'll see. Ask anyone in the world, do you believe in God, or do you believe there is a God? There are only two answers, yes or no. You don't say I have no belief, but yes or no. If you say no, however emphatic, the next question would be why? Then, whatever your life experiences were up to that point, you'd give your reason, basis or motive for your action, decision or conviction. You give your premise, proposition upon which your argument is... I wish you'd stop defining what words mean, Joe. Just because you've only just found out doesn't mean we have. You give your premise. You'd let me know why or why not you're convinced. Well, I've already tried to tell you I'm not convinced. And certainly not by anything that people like you say. You'd let me know, and by the way, this whole thing of like what is the classic definition of atheism versus the classic definition of agnosticism, it is an ongoing conversation that people have been having for many years. In principle, the default position is classic agnosticism because it's impossible to give an answer one way or the other, okay? That's the default position, but we call it atheism because it's specifically a rejection of things that theists say, or that theists offer as being evidence for proof of their truth claims. In reality, it isn't evidence or proof of their truth claims because it's circular thinking. It's looking for a proof of something you already believe to be true rather than looking for a proof of it not being true, which is the deductive, logical way of approaching any problem. But you wouldn't understand that because you already think that you're right. You haven't considered the possibility that you're wrong, whereas I have. You let me know why or why you're not convinced. You can only be convinced by arguments or evidence. There is a reason why you don't believe in God. There's a reason why I don't accept that there is any evidence of your specific God, yes. Finding out the answer would go a long way. As you'll see, the evidence doesn't support your belief. Does an atheist know or believe there is no God? They can't know. Atheism in all its forms, humanism, secularism, naturalism, secular humanism, evolutionism, making up words now, materialism, pantheism, nihilism. Oh, so atheism and nihilism are both two sides of the same coin, are they? It must be a little bit like socialism and liberalism being two sides of the same coin. Sarah Palin. Stems from a belief. Whatever you choose to go with your atheism will determine what kind you are. Okay, well, what do you mean, what kind of atheist? How can you be...